Hello, I'm Everett Doolittle. I'm an ESGR Ombudsman and volunteer. And today we're going to do a unit briefing. I'm going to start off with what is ESGR? This is the agenda. What is the mission and end statement? What are we about? What are we trying to accomplish? What is about outreach, military and employer outreach? About USERRA, the Uniformed Services Employment and Reemployment Right Act, and the award system to help support you and your employer. A little background. We had a draft. It really started with the Civil War. And although many people joined, people were drafted to meet the great need. And that went also for World War I and for World War II. Then we ended the draft. But we created another draft of the Vietnam War, and that was a lottery system. So depending on your number, if you won or not. And then after the end of the war, they switched really to purely a volunteer army supported by the National Guard. Now the National Guard has been a huge component of our country and our security from the beginning of this country. So that they became a major part, but the role has changed over time. Let's look at ESGR. It's a part of the Department of Defense, established in 1972 after the Vietnam War. And it was really, goal is the cooperation, understanding between reserve components, service members, and civilian employers. We know that's a huge burden, and it's even got greater as time went on. But even beyond that, not part of the, truly part of the role, but it's like a three-legged stool. We have one more component, and that's the family, to help work with and support that role between the service member, the family, and your employer. And then a big part of it is called USERRA and the mediation or ombudsman to work and help with any conflict before they become critical. Let's take a look at, there's over 4,600 volunteers in every state and every district and throughout all of the United States. Volunteers. See, this is really a volunteer-driven organization. Now, there is some full-time, like, very few, and they support the volunteers. And they come from every walk, small, large businesses. They come from government. They come from law enforcement, educators, prior military. Volunteers, as myself, helping with this role. Its mission. Let's talk about the mission. ESGR is a Department of Defense office that develops and promotes a supportive work environment for service members through outreach, which we'll talk about each of these components, recognition, increased awareness of the appropriate laws, mediation, and dealing with the conflicts between you and your employer, if you have one. End product really is an all employers support and value the role of the Guard and Reserve and realize they're critical to enhancing the unit's readiness and their mission. Now your world has changed unbelievable. I want you to think about really the National Guard considered once a month, and now you might be going to training for a month, and you may be going for close to a year, and you may end up going back and gone again. I want you to just unbelievable burden you will become to an employer, and that's really what we're trying to do. You have rights, they have rights, but it's created so this doesn't penalize you to support your country. Now I want you to watch this film. It's excellent. It covers many of the things we're going to talk about, and because I'm going to emphasize a few and add to it at the end of this film. Enjoy.
As you prepare for deployment, it's important that you understand the Uniformed Services Employment and Reemployment Rights Act, or USERRA. This federal statute generally protects your employment and reemployment rights while performing military service. Today, we're going to cover some of the protections USERRA provides, as well as the responsibilities USERRA requires of both you and your civilian employer. We'll also touch on the services provided by Employer Support of the Guard and Reserve, or ESGR. ESGR is a Department of Defense program specifically chartered to improve or bridge the communications gap between civilian employers and their military employees in an effort to build better relationships across the reserve components. Regardless of where you are in the deployment cycle, an employer should not deny you reemployment, retention, or any other benefits of employment on the basis of your obligation or application for obligation for service in the uniformed services. USERRA protects service members from discrimination in the workplace based on their military service or affiliation. In addition, USERRA requires employers to put individuals back to work in their civilian jobs after performing military service. Service members must, of course, meet the USERRA requirements for reemployment. For example, they must provide advance notice of their military service. The service member must also not have been away on military duty for more than 5 years. After an absence for military duty, the service member must return to work in a timely manner as defined by USERRA. Finally, the service member must not have been separated from the military with a disqualifying discharge or a discharge under other than honorable conditions. Under USERRA, employers are required to restore the service member to the same level of seniority, status, and pay ordinarily attained if they were not called up for military service. The USERRA law applies to voluntary as well as involuntary military service. As mentioned before, you are required to give written or verbal notice to your civilian employer prior to leaving your job for military training. You should try to provide your civilian employer with at least 30 days notice prior to your departure. If possible, present a copy of your orders to your supervisor and your Human Resources Department. As a matter of policy, the military departments strongly recommend commanders and service members provide, upon request, verification of uniformed service absence to civilian employers regardless of the duration of service. However, your employer may not delay or attempt to defeat their legal responsibilities under USERRA by demanding documentation that does not exist or is not then readily available. Keep in mind that if the civilian employer is providing a benefit above what the USERRA requires, they may need that documentation for authorization and record purposes to continue that benefit. Your employer is required by law to allow you to take a military leave of absence. Before your departure, you should determine if you are going to continue or suspend any employer-sponsored health care plans. Take some time to discuss your options with your Human Resources Department and a TRICARE representative to determine your best course of action. Be sure to resolve any pay and compensation issues prior to your military leave and share your projected return to work date with your employer. Keep in mind that employers can be particularly inconvenienced by the timing of your military duty. If necessary, have your employer contact your military commander to assist with any questions or concerns. If the military mission permits, your commander may be able to reschedule your military duty or assign someone else to perform it. Make every effort to work with your employer to make your call to active duty as smooth as possible. Establishing good working relationships with your civilian employer will not only benefit you when you return to work, but other reserve component members and veterans who work for or apply for jobs with your organization. For more information on your reemployment rights, contact an ESGR Ombudsman at 800-336-4590, option 1, or visit www.esgr.mil. ESGR also offers other services designed to build and maintain positive work environments for reserve component members. One of its most successful efforts is the Employer Awards Program. Service members and their families can recognize employers for employment policies and practices that go above and beyond USERRA requirements by nominating them for awards. Depending on the degree of support, the level of recognition may rise to the Secretary of Defense Employer Support Freedom Award. To find out more about ESGR's award program or to nominate your employer, go to www.esgr.mil/employer awards. And for more information about ESGR's other core missions and our nationwide support network, go to www.esgr.mil or find us on social media via keyword search ESGR.
So we're going to go over each of these components. Employer outreach. The goal is to promote a culture where all employers support and value military service through education, recognition, and mediation. As we look through. So let's look at military outreach. Make sure members are aware of their rights and responsibilities under the law and the value of employer support and recognition. It's an education component, which is really like today what we're doing. Provide education services to members and employers on obligations under USERRA. Ombudsman, that's one of my main roles. We are a neutral, informal mediation that is to help and work with you and work with your employer where there's a conflict. And you have to, ask for it. And we'll talk about how you do that, and we'll talk about what the role is, and to resolve things before they reach to a critical stage. Many times we find the real issue is a lack of understanding and a problem of communication, and this we can help resolve. All right. So what protection do I have? Do you have? And then again, it's under the Uniform Service Employment and Reemployment Rights Act, which is a federal statute that provides service members and veterans civil employment rights. All right? Okay. Employer responsible, allow you to have a leave, reinstate you promptly, and restore seniority. Now, an employer must not deny everything from initial employment to reemployment to promotions or benefits based on military service. Now, as we go along, also with it requires employers to put individuals back to work in their civilian job after serving military. All right, now here's some of the key components. Restore employees who engage in military service to seniority, status, and pay. It's like you never left. You should be not penalized because of the time you spent in the service. Seniority is not necessarily benefits, it's what goes with your contract, basically. Status may be your office, maybe your position, maybe where you work, and the pay should not be penalized. It should reflect like you never left, getting your raises accordingly, and opportunities, which I'll talk about. Discrimination. Protect service members from discrimination in the workplace, based on their military, affiliation. Now, here's what's important. If you believe it's discrimination, you really need to keep records of who's around, when it's happening, how it's happening, because this can be sometimes very hard to prove. So there's a little burden on you to help, as you look at trying to get the assistance from ESGR. The National Guard Service calls out to duty for any for fires, civil unrest, floods. This is not protected under US USERRA, but under state laws. All right? What are the service members' requirements? Provide advance notice to employer. Written or verbal, but please put it in writing, because then we have a paper trail if there's a conflict. Leave a civilian job for fulfilling a military obligation. Serve or leave under honorable conditions, and no more than 5 years, but it's not necessarily 5 years in a row. It's an accumulative effect, and there is exceptions. So if you come to this area, you need to talk to somebody who specializes in this. All right, service members. Notify employer of intent to return to work according to USERRA guidelines. Let's look at 1 to 30 days, you must return to work immediately on the next scheduled work day after safe travel and 8 hours of sleep. Now, we're in interesting times with the pandemic. If the military wants you to do 2 weeks of quarantine, then they should be able to put that. That's what they do with their soldiers now. But I know about the Guard. We're right in this compass of what we do. If your employer wants you to, then you still need to report back to work, even if you just connect with them and they agree, and then determine how you're going to handle it. This is a new area that you need to be aware of. All right, USERRA timeline, 31 to 180 days. You have to submit an application for employment within 14 days. 181 plus, submit an application within 90 days after release from period of service. These are critical things that you must abide by. Very important. All right. Communication is critical to keep a positive relationship. Maintain open communication with your superior and human resource personnel while you're gone. Don't just disappear and then show up. Make sure you are aware of promotions and advancement opportunity so special assignments may be addressed. I've had instances where somebody's gone, there's a test that only once a year, and if you miss the test, you can't get the opportunity. And we worked with them and they tried to get you to get a special test. I don't know if we can do, but if you don't ask, if we don't know, we can't help you. So be aware and be in contact. Okay, keep in touch with the employer and let them know when you are returning. Provide your employer, your unit commander information in case of emergency. I had an incident where a soldier left for almost a year, did not have any real contact, comes on back, wants his job. He can't even get into the factory. He finds out even the machine he worked on has been replaced by new technology that he's not even trained. HR will not talk to him. His supervisor has long left. And he's really reached a point of frustration as the time frame is getting really close where he really needs to go back to work. He contacted ESGR. The state chair contacted me. I tried to make contact and I kept getting ignored until finally I went to the corporate office, which wasn't in Minnesota, contacted them, explained the situation. Immediately they said no. He needs the training, he has a right to come back, and we're able to work through this. And that's really the positive thing we try to do, is to help you. All right. Now, appreciation and awards. Show appreciation for what they do for you, even if wasn't required. And then we have something called the boss list. Now, it's not going to happen today, but I'm going to explain what it is. It's really a process where we can take your employer and show them what you actually do. I think many of them think you're doing a vacation, going on a weekend or going for a month or longer on a special vacation. And you're not. You're really working a very serious job. So we can take them maybe out to Camp Ripley and show you what they do, or maybe we'll take them on an airplane and go to Duluth or the Apostle Islands and show them the different things and give them an idea on how professional you are and what you do, and be flexible on things that matter. Now, I want to show you a boss list. This is one that went to Duluth. All right, and you see the storm coming in. Actually, the group out of one of the other areas was going to fly Chinooks, had to be turned down and couldn't go. We fly. The people are just at typically 1:30. They're in the plane. We fly there. We have a special presentation, not an ES. There's a little component ESGR, but a presentation. What do you do? What are your job? How critically important is your mission? So they really have a better understanding. And most of them leave with such pride even to be able to support you. And this is the group before we fly them back. All right. Now, how do I get help? Your command, chain of command. You got a sergeant there. You got a captain. You got a problem, talk to your sergeant. Tell them what's going on. And maybe they can give you advice, or maybe they can help resolve it. Or contact your local ESGR volunteer. Now, again, another step, contact ESGR State Committee. Really go to www.esgr.mil. Or really, we're going to recommend you literally go, you can go in esgr.mil and find, the process, how to do it, and you would contact and send a message to National, and then they would assign it. Now, let me show you how this works. Once headquarters gets the request for service, they determine if it is an ESG, if it's a USERRA issue, and if it is, they forward it to the state ESGR state chair. Now, the state chair then assigns it to somebody else, like myself, to work with you, and so, but here's the rules. I will contact you by phone, and so I want you not to be afraid, is my point. I will do nothing without your permission. I will ask you, what do you want to do? And I'll tell you, everything you tell me is totally confidential. And I will not even contact your supervisor, anybody, without your permission. And we'll talk about what is it I can share and can't share. Now, many times we resolve the entire issue right there You just need more information on what to do, and you feel confident then to follow up yourself, which is a win for both of us. So in other words, we can help you, and so don't feel like you're going to get in trouble because they're going to find out you call behind their back. You don't. It's totally confidential, and a lot of times just the conversation alone can help you resolve it. And if not, that's what we're for. And we're very low key. We talk to them in the same level. We try to find out how they see it, and how together we can resolve problems. All right. Now, there is a time issue. It's very important to understand, especially when you make the call and it's accepted, that clock starts then. And weekends count just the same as any other day. And so in other words, you need to contact, you need to keep it in mind. When you do this, you need to be available so I can get a hold of you. Because I only have so much time to get a hold of you, get a hold of your employer or your supervisor. Now, the entire process normally is a 14-day, and termination issue is 7. And within that, I have to resolve it or close the case. Now, you can open a new one. You can close it. You can immediately do the same thing and open a new one, even request the same person if you wish. You know, so, but let's say I can't resolve it. Your employer says, no, you know, I don't care what the rules are. I'm not going to do it or whatever. The next step, if you wish to go, is the Department of Defense VETS, which is really the formal investigative component where they can do subpoenas, everything else, and determine, and really it's an investigative organization. And they can then go to the next level. But you can always call an attorney and have a private attorney. But I recommend first you start with ESGR, because once you get an attorney involved, it kind of makes, we really won't get involved, but vets will, as long as they don't interfere. But start with your command and work your way. The benefits, you know, of a service member is many. Supports the mission of the military. It gives you training and leadership experience that you can bring back to the job, and experience in specialized areas that can easily transfer to civilian occupation, directly or indirectly. That's me right there, military police. Did go in for military police. Believe it or not, I joined to be a paratrooper back in the Vietnam era, and they sent me to military police school. I had no desire. I went to a very professional training for 8 weeks. I worked as a military police and then transferred, not my choice, but my unit, to infantry, 101st Airborne, shipped to Vietnam, back to military police when I got back. But the reason I'm saying it, I ended up with 42 years in criminal justice. 32 of those years as a police officer, deputy, and a senior special agent. And during that time taught, and then when I got retired, I then finished my doctorate, went on to teach at Metropolitan State University, criminal justice law enforcement, and retired after 15 years as the interim dean for the last 2. Military gave me the training and experience for me to have a career, which I never thought of even going in that direction. So take advantage. Remember, everything you do affects the next person that comes. So everything you do, be careful. Don't pull games, don't lie, don't do anything that could give a bad reputation and hurt the next person who's trying to work for that organization. Now the award system, why not help or at least say thank you to the people you work for? I don't care if you don't think they're doing that much. You're a burden. I hate to say it that way. So we have a series of awards. The first one's personal. Let's say you have a really good employer. The supervisor goes out of their way. Now, when you fill the form out, identify all the special things they do. Do a decent write-up so it can go to the next level. So really spend some time and write up why they deserve the Patriot Award. This is for a person, and these awards are progressive. Now, typically somebody like myself comes up, and that's a part I love dearly. I give the award, do a nice presentation. It can be just the 2 people, 3, their supervisor and your supervisor. Want to recognize them. Or it can be a really big award program, which I've been part of many of them. The next one is called above and beyond. This is for the organization, not for a person. But they first have to have patron awards, 1 or 2, before they move on. And they use that same write-up to determine issues to move on. This goes to a state committee. Then there's another series of awards, which even in the video talked about. Here is an example. As you pull up ESGR, what you find, it has a question, answer, USERRA, all this information available to help you to be prepared and even help you with your supervisor. There's also an entire area on what is USERRA, what are the questions, and they're all set up in a way that many times you can resolve and get your answers right here. And then they have a page in there that talks about the awards, employer awards, the different awards, what happens, and how to do a nomination. And then finally, there's with it, there's also about volunteer. And again, you as a person may wish to volunteer and be part of ESGR. Some quick questions. Does USERRA protect service members if they volunteer? Yes. Is service members required to provide written orders? No, but please, highly recommend it. Does the service member have to find replacement? No. Does a service member have to use their vacation? No. And how soon to reemployment? Promptly. And so a lot of service members say, I get copies of all my different duties and different times I have to go, and I immediately give that, so I give them plenty of notice so there's no surprises. Here's some of your contacts, really important to help you. And then finally, I want to talk about, this is Red Cross highly recommended that you keep this number and give it with your family. And if there's an emergency, a death in the family or something, they need to bring you home, Red Cross will work with you. Kimberly is the full-time ESGR program support. Here's her information. It's worth noting, and she can be an unbelievable value, and you can just look up ESGR and find her. Now, we're at the end of this, and since this is a Zoom presentation, any questions you have at this time, go talk to your sergeant. And if you wish to talk to an ESGR rep, I think you understand now. But many of your sergeant, your captain can help you. You have a good day, and I appreciate this opportunity to be with you. Okay. Now we're going to, normally I would say, I'll be here and you can ask me questions and I'm more than willing to help you. But we're a Zoom presentation, so be safe. Thank you for the opportunity of being here. I am so proud to be able to do this because I come from a time where soldiers, when they come back, were treated terribly. What I've seen, the change is just unbelievable for my heart, just to know that you have this support. But be careful, that pendulum changes. So cherish it, take care of your family, and be safe.